Coming to you from the mountains and the plain. The only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. As always, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And today we're going to be talking about something that the mainstream media, I don't think has been... So, in the last week, we had these big revelations coming out of the DOJ from an FBI agent named Barnett, William Barnett. He was the FBI agent who was originally tasked with investigating Michael Flynn. And he had an interview with the FBI, and in that interview, he revealed that it was his impression that the Mueller team, Peter Strzok, everyone involved in this attempt to get Trump, were actually trying to, quote, get Trump. That was his opinion. Mainstream media ran with that headline that it was an attempt to get Trump, which is fair. It's the most explosive language in the document dump. But I want to talk today about piecing together what we learned from this, because when you take these little pieces, the get Trump bit, it's very inflammatory. But when you piece it together with everything we've learned over the past 4 years, it paints a much bigger picture of just how involved Joe Biden was in this attempted coup to, quote, get Trump. So we're going to be doing that today. Today's definitely an episode to share. We're going to be going through all of the documents, most of the documents that we've had over the last 4 years to paint this total picture of Joe Biden's involvement. So we need to hit that share button because no one in the mainstream media is doing this. They don't have enough time. They don't have an hour to devote to doing it. So we have to do it for them. So please make sure you hit the share button. Please make sure you hit the like button and comment on Facebook and on YouTube. Please make sure you give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications.
Yeah, so Max, I didn't want to say that this happened. So I'm gonna kind of talk about what we mean by the deep state, right? And I want to say that to a degree that maybe I know someone who was culpable in this deep state. And I want to tell you what I mean. I should not be able to call up and have a conversation with a judge about someone who's being sentenced and influence that sentencing. Would you agree?
Yeah, you should.
I think that everyone would probably agree that that's probably not ethical, right?
No, absolutely not ethical.
But I'm going to tell you something else. And I got to be really careful how I say this. 100% that happened. 100%. I shouldn't be able to do that, yet I know that happened. I know that happened.
That people called in. Yeah, we know that that's happened. I mean, right now you have Judge Emmett Sullivan, who's hired outside counsel to argue on behalf of a government that doesn't want Flynn to be prosecuted. Right now, the government wants Flynn let off the hook. Flynn says, I'm innocent. So the judge, rather than there's no one actually arguing to put Flynn behind bars anymore.
Right.
So the judge, Emmett Sullivan, in this case, has actually hired an outside person to play the role of the government, which is, it's unfounded. No, you've never seen that. So there are many cases of outsiders trying to influence sentencing, and that's a literal example.
So I have a friend I'm just going to tell you, I have a friend that was charged with something he did wrong. He absolutely did something wrong, right? And someone called the judge, and he went from, a possible 5-year sentence to, less than a year. It shouldn't be able to. That should not be able to happen, right? But it happened.
So there are ways that it can technically happen. So when you have a court case, if it's a high-profile case, a lot of times what you'll have are amicus briefs, which are basically friend of the court briefs, which are interested parties filing a brief and recommending a particular sentence or recommending a particular judgment. You see a lot in Supreme Court cases. Right. But you can also see it in trial cases where people who have an interest in the case, you see that a lot of times when people are charged with murder or abduction. You will have family members petition the court and say, hey, I want a strict sentence. Hey, I want leniency. There are ways to do it. Picking up the phone and calling a judge would definitely be outside of the bounds of what's typically considered an amicus brief. So there's ways to do it ethically and legally, and there are ways that definitely are shady. And we've seen with the deep state, the farther they get, the more caught they get, the more evidence is revealed showing just how shady they've been, the more desperate they've become in trying to make sure that their targets are prosecuted, right? They've spent 4 years trying to go after Donald Trump and his associates. Now that it looked like they win, all of a sudden the Michael Flynn house of cards came tumbling down, and we revealed them for who they actually are. So I want to put this up on the screen. Let's put up image 1. We've known for a while that the FBI originally wanted to drop the Michael Flynn investigation. This is all the way back. This is well over a year ago we knew this. We didn't know when, but we knew that there were documents suggesting that agents were prepared to close Michael Flynn's case, and this is the article from Politico, but then abruptly reversed course. And we really hadn't known why they reversed course until last week. And this is, again, what I'm talking about, the interview that the FBI did, their 302 interview with William Barnett, who was the agent involved in that early Flynn case. Let's go ahead and put up image 2. So this is Bill Barnett. This is the part one of the pages from that interview, which was released not to the public. It was released as exculpatory information as part of Michael Flynn's court case, trying to get his whole sentence thrown out. So I want to read the bottom paragraph. Barnett thought the Trump campaign may have been aware the Russians were attempting to impact the election, but that was far different from the Trump campaign and the Russians having a deal and or working together quid pro quo. Barnett and others joked about how the investigation into collusion could be made into a game, which they referred to as collusion clue. In the hypothetical game, investigators are able to choose any character conducting any activity in any location and pair this individual with another character and interpret it as evidence of collusion. With respect to Flynn's redacted with the Russian ambassador, I guess that was Call, in December 2016, Barnett did not believe Flynn was being directed by Trump. Barnett did not believe Flynn had any additional information to provide to the special counsel's office. Barnett believed the prosecution of Flynn by the special counsel's office was used as a means to, quote, get Trump. We can go ahead and take that off the screen now. That was, as we mentioned at the start, Joe, the explosive document reveal from last week. The idea that the FBI agent in charge of investigating Flynn originally was convinced that the deep staters, both within the special counsel's office and the same cast of characters who were trying to push this before Mueller was appointed, that they were trying to get Trump. What do you think about that?
I think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely crazy. It's crazy.
So let's keep going onto page. Let's go to image 3. This is from another part of the document. It says, on November 8th, 2016, Barnett said there was a link message concerning the closing of the Razor investigation. That's how they referred to Michael Flynn. You remember Crossfire Hurricane? That was another one involved
right.
Carter Page. Flynn was Crossfire Razor. So on November 8th, Barnett said there was a link message concerning the closing of the Razor investigation, and Barnett had a very frank discussion concerning the Razor investigation. Analyst 1 believed the investigation was an exercise in futility. Barnett did not understand the point of the investigation. So that was November 8th of 2016. It was election, right around election day.
Right after election.
About closing. Yeah, they're talking about closing the investigation because it did not have a legitimate reason. It did not have a predicate to justify it. Let's put up image 4. This is the next part from that document dump. Barnett said he was working on the document to close the Flynn investigation on January 3rd and January 4th of 2017, so just after the election, concerning a link message on the 4th of January from Analyst 2 to Barnett, which stated, quote, I know COB, basically the close of the case, it needs to be at close of business. I know close of business, it needs to be finished. Barnett could not recall any timeline or deadline on closing the Razor investigation. On the 4th of January, Analyst 3 emailed Barnett with information concerning redacted. Barnett wanted to include in the closing document. At 2:21 p.m. on January 4th, Barnett received a message from redacted, asking that Barnett not close the Razor investigation as Peter Strzok had information to add to the file. Barnett was provided the blank concerning redacted involving Flynn. Barnett read redacted a couple of times and did not see what the significant issue or rub was. Redacted, Barnett did not change his view. And let's go to the next one, image 5. Did not change his view that Flynn was not compromised by the Russians after reading redacted. I'm presuming that, Joe, that is the document surrounding Michael Flynn's phone call with the Russians. At the time, Barnett was told there was a potential Logan Act violation. Barnett was not familiar with the Logan Act and had to research the matter. Barnett did not see a potential Logan Act violation as a major issue concerning the Razor investigation. Barnett did not see the Logan Act as a serious standalone charge. There was a conversation between Redacted and Barnett concerning an interview of Flynn. Barnett told Redacted Barnett, would not be available the following day, January 5th, 2020, due to a scheduled medical procedure. So I want to put that all on the table. So the agent, FBI agent, who was running the original Michael Flynn investigation, said he wanted to close it down. He started closing it down on January 3rd, 2017. The following day at 2:21 p.m., he got a message saying that Peter Strzok wanted him to keep it open because he had additional information to add to the file.
And he got the additional information.
Yeah, we know from the context that additional information, you can read between the lines, was the phone call between Flynn and the Russian ambassador, right? The one that the Obama administration was going crazy about. So on the 3rd of January, he wanted it closed. On the 4th, he was told to keep it open. Joe, do you remember what happened on the 5th of January?
Yes.
I want to stop you. Let's go ahead and put up image 6.
I do remember.
This is the email that Susan Rice, Joe, you're a very close friend. Susan Rice sent herself this email on Inauguration Day, minutes before Donald Trump was inaugurated. This was referred to as the cover your ass email. She emailed herself on January 20th, 2017 at 12:15 p.m. to memorialize a January 5th meeting. So 2 days after the FBI tried to close the investigation to Flynn is when that Obama administration meeting in the White House occurred to talk about keeping it open. So I'll read this for everyone listening to the audio version. On January 5th, following a briefing by IC leadership on Russian hacking during the 2016 presidential election, President Obama had a brief follow-on conversation with FBI Director Jim Comey and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates in the Oval Office. Vice President Biden and I were also present. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the intelligence and law enforcement communities, quote, by the book, end quote. The president stressed that he is not asking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement teams need to proceed as it normally would by the book. From a national security perspective, however, President Obama said he wants to be sure that as we engage with the incoming team, we are mindful to ascertain if there is any reason that we cannot share information fully as it relates to Russia. Let's put up image 7. Director Comey affirmed that he is proceeding, quote, by the book, end quote, as it relates to law enforcement. From a national security perspective, Comey said he does have some concerns that incoming NSA, Michael Flynn, is speaking frequently with Russian Ambassador Kislyak. Comey said that could be an issue as it relates to sharing sensitive information. President Obama asked if Comey was saying that the NSC should not pass sensitive information related to Russia to Flynn. Comey replied, potentially. He added that he has no indication thus far that Flynn has passed classified information to Kislyak, but he noted that, quote, the level of communication is unusual.
Which it's not.
Quote. The president
it's
asked,
not unusual.
The president asked Comey to inform him if anything changes in the next few weeks that should affect how we share classified information with the incoming team. Comey said he would. So I wanted to read that out fully for anyone listening on audio. That's the cover your ass email from Susan Rice. Minutes before she's dragged out. The last thing she did as part of the Obama administration was to memorialize that the January 5th meeting that Obama promised, made them promise that they would only conduct the investigation by the book. The only reason you do that, Joe, is if there's evidence to believe that it wasn't by the book.
Which they're starting to uncover.
Yeah.
Which is about to come out.
Yeah, it's go ahead.
When we talk about the deep state, that's what we're talking about. You have an incoming team. No, you have an incoming president. And what they're saying is that we should withhold that information from the incoming team, the incoming administration. I just want you to think about that. You have a president that is going out of office, served 2 terms, that's leaving. You have a new one coming in, and they're doing anything they can to basically stand in his way day one.
Yeah.
Right? That's un-American. I just want to be really clear. That's not American. That's not the country that we're supposed to operate from. That's a deep state. That by itself is operating like a deep state. Sorry. Just like being able to call a judge and get a sentence drastically reduced or influence that decision is wrong. It's a deep state. I'm sorry, but it is.
Yeah.
And any ability that you can subvert justice on its face from what it could be, or what it should be, or what it could have been, or what it should have been, or what it would have been, right? That's a deep state.
I think it's very interesting that according to Susan Rice, she claims that Barack Obama told them to only conduct the investigation by the book, and that he was not asking about, initiating, or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. And then he transitions to saying, but from a national security perspective, I need you to tell me what you know, right? It's so phony that even this cover your ass email is constructed in a way that admits that he wasn't asking by the book. He was the outgoing president sitting in on a meeting where they're going over communications between the incoming national security advisor and foreign counterparts.
Yep.
Let's just get this completely clear. Comey said that it was unusual that Michael Flynn was calling the Russian ambassador. It wasn't. Michael Flynn was the incoming national security advisor. When you're an incoming administration, you're given a lot of privileges, a lot of liberties. You're given access to classified information because you're expected that on day one you should hit the ground running. You don't want a learning curve. You want to be able to know all the players around the world. You want to be introduced. You want to be talking to them. So on day one, you can just act like nothing's changed. It ensures the peaceful transition of power. We talk about how the left is crazed that Trump can't commit to that. Obama never committed to it because he's actively trying to undermine that peaceful transition of power. And Joe, I think it is very, very interesting that on January 3rd, you had Barnett try and close the case. On the 4th, Strzok said, keep it open. And on the 5th, you had this meeting about making sure it continues by the book. Well, if it was continuing by the book, then you should have listened to Barnett, right? If Obama truly wanted it to be by the book, then when Bill Barnett said there's no evidence, we have to close it, that should have been it.
The day before should have been done. 100%.
2 days before. Yeah.
The 4th.
That was by the book.
5th. Right.
Yeah.
Look, it's seditious at worst, right? I mean, he's outgoing and he's telling people basically to interfere with the ability for him to run the government, run the country.
Yeah.
I don't know of a CEO that doesn't have access to everything that goes on within his organization. And the president of the United States is the CEO of the United States. That is his job, right? And so I just find it strange that this went on for nearly 2.5 years into the presidency, 3 years into the presidency, right? Is that he dealt with this kind of overhanging of the Russian hoax, which turned out to be a hoax.
Yeah.
And I find it even more, scary that the left, they found out that there was no collusion, right? That there was nothing that went on with Russia, because at the beginning they knew that there was nothing that went on with Russia, right? Yet 3 years later, we're dealing with what? What are we dealing with right now? We're dealing with the fact that the left hasn't even admitted to what they've done. We have all this evidence, and they basically want to walk away and just act like, oh, I'm sorry you caught me with my pants down, but nothing to see here, right? No responsibility. Yeah. And again, it gets back to the left. The left has a habit of just no accountability. I mean, their entire, everything that they stand for on the left is for no accountability. Yet the more evidence that comes out, you still have people that haven't. Now, look, somebody should go to jail. Somebody should go to jail. I'm sorry, somebody should.
It's time for someone to go to jail.
And now they're ballot harvesting.
That one lawyer.
Now they're ballot harvesting in Minnesota, literally scaring people. I mean, this is scary stuff. What Ilhan Omar is doing. Ilhan Omar. It's scary stuff. Yeah. Ilhan, whatever.
Yeah.
It's scary stuff. I mean, it literally is straight out of a playbook that used to happen or still does happen in Africa. She's doing it right here. She's literally going in and terrorizing the Somali community, saying, you will give me all your ballots, right? I will actually fill them out for you. And they're being so bold as to actually take videos of this. There's videos of this.
They're bragging about it. They're bragging about it, which is why I think that it's that same hubris that is why we've been able to catch so many deep staters in these lies, because they didn't think they'd get caught. Just like that ballot harvester didn't think his Instagram video showing all of the ballots that he illegally harvests would ever get caught. It's the hubris that they truly think they're untouchable. So we know in this January 5th meeting, a day or two after the FBI tried to close the case, that Obama and Biden and Susan Rice were in with Comey and Sally Yates talking about this. And Obama said, go buy the book. If it was by the book, it should have been closed because that's what the FBI career officials wanted to do. But the anti-Trump officials wanted to keep it open. Strzok said, hey, I think we can go with the Logan Act. Let's keep it open. Let me see if I can add some stuff to the file. We now know, and we've known for a couple months, that it was Joe Biden who recommended during that January 5th meeting to pursue the Logan Act. Let's go ahead and put up image 8. It's hard to read, but these are handwritten notes from Peter Strzok. Now, Peter Strzok was in the meeting. How would he have notes? Immediately after the meeting, James Comey called Peter Strzok and relayed what was said. Peter Strzok, in his handwritten notes, then basically wrote down what James Comey told him went down in that January 5th meeting. So he heard it from a friend who heard it from another, right? It's the old REO speedwagon thing. But because these people were high-ranking FBI officials, this is evidence, right? When the director of the FBI tells a high-ranking FBI official what happened in a meeting and that FBI official takes notes, that is admissible. So it's hard to read, but if you look right there on line 3, you can see VP, and then you see in quotations, Logan Act. We know from Peter Strzok's notes, from James Comey's own words, that Joe Biden is the one who brought up the Logan Act.
Right.
Now, what is the Logan Act? Let's get this out of the way first. We're going to skip up to image 12, Mr. Producer. The Logan Act has been on the books since 1799. No one has ever been successfully prosecuted and sentenced under this law. And it's found in 18 U.S.C. section 953. And it says that any citizen of the United States, wherever he may be, who, without authority of the United States, directly or indirectly commences or carries on any correspondence or intercourse with any foreign government or any officer or agent thereof, with intent to influence the measures or conduct of any foreign government or of any officer or agent thereof in relation to any disputes or controversies within the United States, or to defeat the measures of the United States, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both. The reason that this has never been successfully prosecuted is, Joe, you and I, we have a First Amendment right to pick up the phone and call someone.
Right.
If that person's overseas, that right doesn't go away.
Right.
If we want to call a government official and say, hey, I think you should do X, Y, and Z, the government can't prosecute for it. It's First Amendment protections. Joe Biden recommended that the FBI, days after the FBI had concluded there was insufficient evidence to keep the investigation going, Joe Biden is the one who recommended that they pursue the Logan Act. They pursue Logan Act charges, a crime he knew has never been successfully prosecuted, and likely because it's an unconstitutional law. It was Joe Biden who made the recommendation. We got him. I mean, it's right there in the notes.
And he's running for president. And they're harvesting ballots. And they're never held responsible for anything, Max. I mean, that's the part that just drives me crazy. Look, if you walk into a candy store or a store and you steal a candy bar, and somebody sees you steal a candy bar, and you have proof they stole the candy bar, just because they ate the candy bar doesn't mean they didn't steal it, right? They ate the evidence, and that's basically what they've done. Is they've just kind of scooted this under the rug, saying, that doesn't really matter, or tried to explain it away as it's not that big a deal. It is a big deal. It's a huge deal, and now this man's running for president.
So someone just in the comments said, actually the most broken logic ever. I don't know if they're referring to me or the actual events, but let's break this down. And before I break it down again, I need everyone to hit that share button on Facebook, hit the share button, hit the like button, comment on YouTube. Make sure you give us a thumbs up, like the video. If you haven't, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. On January 3rd, Bill Barnett started the process of closing the Michael Flynn investigation for a lack of evidence, a lack of predication. The next day on January 4th, Peter Strzok said, hey, let's keep it open a little bit longer. I want to add some more evidence to the file. Maybe we can find another justification to keep looking. On January 5th, Joe Biden, in a White House meeting with James Comey and Sally Yates, recommended that they pursue the Logan Act, which is this idea that Flynn broke the law because he talked to a Russian. That's it.
Right.
That same day, James Comey relayed that instruction to Peter Strzok, and Peter Strzok then kept the investigation open, pursuing that bogus crime. That is the link. That is the logical chain. It was supposed to be closed. Strzok kept it open. Biden said investigate it. That was relayed to Strzok. Strzok did just that. That is the ironclad connection to, okay, Zach says if they don't hold Biden accountable. Yeah.
Right.
That is the ironclad connection between Joe Biden and this attempted coup. You can trace it directly back from Joe Biden to Comey to Peter Strzok, who was in charge of the investigation. You can trace it directly back. So why isn't Joe Biden being subpoenaed? Why isn't he being called to testify?
Well, why isn't Hillary
Why
Clinton
not?
in jail for, wiping servers? Why is the investigation team part of the Mueller team that actually wiped down, that erased information or lost phones or lost devices, or why are they not being prosecuted? Right? Why is it that literally no one on the left is ever held accountable? I'm just trying to figure out what pictures they have of someone. Because frankly, they should all be in jail. They should all be in jail.
Yeah.
Why aren't they in jail? Why are we even having this conversation? Why is it that the American people literally get held to a standard, but these dirt bags, I wanted to say something else, right, don't get held responsible for anything that they do? Why? There's just a different standard. We don't even operate as the same America as we did before. We just don't. I mean, right now they can just do whatever they want and then persecute people at will. It amazes me. It amazes me that we can actually have to spend an hour on this, and that common sense would not prevail. That they wouldn't just do a line of events and say, okay, based on this information, why is it that Barnett said on the 4th that he still doesn't see anything? There's nothing here. And then on the 5th, they want to have a conversation about the fact that they're quote unquote doing it by the book, which turned into an investigation, which got leaked into the press. And why is it that there's no integrity in things that are leaked to the press? And why is it the stories are made up and then there's anonymous sources? I got an anonymous source that says that, I was going to say something bad about Joe Biden, but why is it that anonymous sources get to create credible stories? Because that's how this all started. That's how the entire Russian hoax started, was based on a lie. It was based on a lie, a fake dossier. That's how it started.
Yeah.
Fake.
So I just added in the comment section of our YouTube and Facebook streams a link if you want to join our campaign today to pressure Congress to subpoena Joe Biden to make him answer for this. You can use that link, join our FactsBox campaign, help support the show, the channel, and pressure Congress at the same time. Interestingly enough, James Comey is set to testify on the 30th of September. Andrew McCabe is set to testify on the 6th of October. At that point, everyone in this meeting, with the exception of Barack Obama and Joe Biden, will have already testified under oath about what happened in that meeting. And they all have different takes on what happened. So James Comey says, through Peter Strzok's notes, we know that James Comey says that it was Joe Biden who first brought up the Logan Act. If we put up image 10, we know from Sally Yates' testimony before Congress that Yates says that it was James Comey who brought it up. It wasn't Biden. She says it was Comey that brought up the Logan Act. So there's conflicting testimony. We actually have a video of her saying that. Let's go ahead and play cut 2. No, there's 2 cuts there, Josh.
2 cuts. We're looking for it.
Okay, so we have the cut. We have cut 2. That Sally Yates claims she doesn't remember whether the Logan Act was mentioned or not. Do we have that cut? You should have it.
Cut 1?
Cut 2.
Downloading. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll keep vamping. So Sally Yates testified before Congress that she did not remember whether Joe Biden brought it up.
Okay,
She
he's
says,
got
to
it.
the best of her knowledge, it was Comey. Let's go ahead and play cut 2.
Now let's talk about January 5th meeting. Was the vice president there?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Did he mention the Logan Act?
I don't remember the vice president saying much of anything in this meeting.
So you don't remember him mentioning the Logan Act?
No, I don't.
She lied.
So she says she doesn't remember it. Based on her recollection, she remembers it as being Joe Biden who brought it up. But the Flynn legal team is fighting using these Strzok notes. So let's go ahead and put up image 9. This is from Michael Flynn's, one of his legal filings. They got it wrong, assuming that it was January 4th. It was actually a January 5th meeting, and the DOJ has confirmed that. But they say Strzok's notes reveal that former President Obama, James Comey, Sally Yates, Joe Biden, and apparently Susan Rice discussed the transcripts of Flynn's calls and how to proceed against him. Mr. Obama himself directed that the right people investigate General Flynn. This caused former FBI Director Comey to acknowledge the obvious. General Flynn's phone calls with Ambassador Kislyak appear legit. According to Strzok's notes, it appears that Vice President Biden personally raised the idea of the Logan Act. That became an admitted pretext to investigate General Flynn.
Wow.
So we'll take a step back again. They had no evidence that Flynn was committing any crimes. The FBI agent in charge, Bill Burnett, wanted it closed. The next day, Peter Strzok said, hey, let's keep it open. Give me some time to add some documents. The next day, Joe Biden told them to use the Logan Act. That was relayed to Strzok. He kept going with the investigation under those false pretexts to keep the investigation open, to violate Michael Flynn's rights, to strip him of everything, right? They sullied his good name. He was forced to mortgage or sell his properties, went through all of his life savings to try and defend himself. They withheld exculpatory information at trial, pressuring him to plead guilty to a crime he never committed. And now when the government's finally admitted, hey, you know what, this was completely crooked, you have a leftist judge trying to extend it as long as possible in the hopes that Donald Trump, I guess, loses re-election and he can actually sentence Michael Flynn. It's as crooked as it gets. And at the top of this seditious conspiracy sits Joe Biden, amazingly enough. Joe Biden.
Max, it's not just Joe Biden. It literally is a culture of the left to lie, cheat, steal, do whatever they want. It's not a mistake that they're pedophiles, rapists, and closet racists, right? And I don't know if you actually saw this, and it has little to do with this, but it goes to just the overall way that this leftist, this small minority. By the way, this is not the majority of America. It's not. They've created propaganda, and they literally have muled their sheep along to follow them. But how much do you think, if we're just now hearing about these ballot harvesting and stuff thrown in the trash, how deep is this deep state? I mean, did you see what happened? Did you hear the temp worker tosses the troops ballots in the trash?
Yeah, that happened. Did they find out who it was? That was in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it was a temp worker.
That was where they found it was a temp worker.
And every one of those ballots was for Trump. So now the
I don't
people
know if every
that are
single one, but I know that they amended it to say most of them were definitively for Trump. I don't know if they said every one because
military
they
ballots found in the trash in Pennsylvania all were for Trump votes.
So what I'm just saying that was the original press release, and then they amended it later on to say that at least 7 of the 12 were definitely for Trump. But they were Trump votes. They threw Trump votes in the trash.
Right. Not just threw Trump votes in the trash. Not just threw Trump votes in the trash. That's not what happened. They took Trump votes from people that are out there serving their country, from our troops. They basically said, hey, look, you can go defend this country, right? You can defend the freedom of this country. You can defend people here, sacrifice your life, put your life on the line, and your vote does not count. I mean, it's to a whole new level of disgusting. And this is what the Democrats do. The Democrats lie, cheat, and steal. That's all they are. They're the party of liars, cheats, and thieves. That's what they are.
So here is, you want to talk about lying. Here is Joe Biden when he was asked on TV whether he had any involvement in Michael Flynn's investigation. He lied and said no. Let's go ahead and play cut 1.
The president said yesterday that move is justified because President Obama targeted Flynn. He called it, quote, the biggest political crime in U.S. history. Your former Senate colleague, Charles Grassley, has added that Flynn was entrapped and asked on the Senate floor, what did Obama and Biden know? When did they know it? So what did you know about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn, and was there anything improper done?
I know nothing about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn, number one. Number two, this is all about diversion. This is a game this guy plays all the time. The country is in crisis. We're in an economic crisis, a health crisis. We're in real trouble. He should stop trying to always divert attention from the real concerns of the American people. The American people are worried with good reason. He has acted irresponsibly from the very beginning. He continues to act irresponsibly. He hasn't done his job. This is all about diverting attention from the horrible way in which he has acted with what he did. He's not the...
No, we have to keep going. No, put it back on. It's not finished.
We don't have coronavirus because of him, but we have the devastating impact of it because of his lack of a policy, his lack of action. It's all about diversion.
I do want to press that. You say you didn't know anything about it, but you were reported to be at a January 5th, 2017 meeting where you and the president were briefed on the FBI's plan to question Michael Flynn over those conversations he had with the Russian ambassador Kislyak.
Now, I thought you asked me whether or not I had anything to do with him being prosecuted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was aware that they asked for an investigation, but that's all I know about it, and I don't think anything else. Look, think about this. Can you imagine any other president of the United States focusing on?
So, Joe, I want to keep going because we had to get that last bit in of him, and we didn't want to edit it. We didn't want to edit it make people say we took anything out of context. He said, I had no knowledge of the investigation. And said it's just an attempt to divert, which that's what he says all the time.
That's all he does.
Anytime you criticize him,
Yeah.
he says, you're not allowed to criticize me because Donald Trump is bad.
We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. Look, the problem that I have is just give me substance. Like, talk about something other than Orange Man bad, which is all they say. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. Oh, he's dividing the country. You have nothing. There's no platform. This is the first time in history, right? Obama ran with hope and change, right? Not the change or hope that any of us had, but he ran on that, right? What has this campaign, what have the Democrats run on anywhere? The fact they destroy every city they go into? The higher homeless in their area? The fact that they're burning down buildings?
Yeah, Joe Biden is running on this promise that he did a great job as vice president, even though we know unless something's actually given to the vice president to do, the vice president does very little other than cast a tie vote in the event that it's tied in the Senate. That's really the only obligation the vice president has, that and being prepared to be president if the president dies or is incapacitated.
Right.
The vice president doesn't do anything else. So Joe Biden's tried to run on this message of accomplishments. And there's been a couple things that Barack Obama had delegated to him, such as making sure that the stimulus money was well spent, things like that. They point to say, hey, I did a good job. But anytime you point out what he did a bad job at, he says you're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about Ukraine because that's just diversion. You're not allowed to talk about Michael Flynn's investigation, the fact that he lied about being involved in it. That's just diversion. He's only willing to talk about the good things he did. And anyone who dares mention any of the bad, they call him a liar. I want to talk, Joe, about, we've talked about this a bunch, the crimes at play here. From where I look, there are two big crimes. And let's just real quick, before we even get into that, put up image 11, Mr. Producer. Joe Biden says he has no idea, he was not involved in the investigation of Michael Flynn at all. Yet on January 12th, 2017, the Vice President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, unmasked Michael Flynn in an intelligence report that he had received. So not only was he in that January 5th meeting, which you can see the same day they had that meeting, Barack Obama's chief of staff, Dennis Madonna, he unmasked Flynn as well. The same day. But not only was Biden in that meeting where he recommended the Logan Act, Biden claims on that show that the FBI was asking for an investigation. That's not how it works. The FBI doesn't ask for an investigation. And it wasn't them asking, hey, can we do the Logan Act? It was Joe Biden recommending the Logan Act. Why? Because just 2 days prior, the agents involved, as we covered, Bill Barnett, recommended that the investigation be closed for lack of evidence. They had to find another pretext. They had to find another way to predicate the investigation. So they came up with this bogus Logan Act that's never been successfully prosecuted. And the go-ahead, the green light, came from Joe Biden. It wasn't Comey asking for it. It was Joe Biden telling them how to get around that lack of predication to find a new way to investigate Michael Flynn. So the two crimes, and again, if you're watching and you like what we're talking about, more people need to see this. Make sure you hit that share button, like, comment,
share it
on YouTube. Make sure
you're not going to see it anywhere else. You're not going to actually see the facts like this anywhere else. Right? Tucker Carlson gets deplatformed by Facebook talking about what the left is doing. They literally are, Max, Facebook blocked FEC United. They blocked it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Why?
So an organization set up in Colorado, because it's on fire, right? Because every time we have a meeting at FEC United, 300 to 500 people show up.
So why they block it? What's the reasoning for blocking it?
They said it goes against community standards. Because an organization that stands for religious freedom, stands for education accountability, and stands for commerce, businesses, and giving them proper support, policy and politics. We've had hundreds of politicians just in Colorado that have signed it, creating a law and policy environment, which is what we're doing now, working to help communities become better in their community. all of that goes against Facebook standards. So actually try it. I mean, if you're listening to this, go into the comment section and put in FECUnited.com.
Shadow ban the website.
Yeah, shadow ban the website. For what? They banned the website for what? For standing up in the community? I kid you not. You can't put in FECUnited.com anywhere. I mean, it's great that we're having the effect that we have with, 80,000 or 85,000 people in Colorado and growing. But now they're saying, hey, look, you guys are growing too fast. This is a part of the deep state, guys. You can't even have an organization out there that stands up for the people, that finally represents those things that are pillars in the community, right? You can't even do it.
Yeah.
And
all FEC United is about is stopping the lockdowns,
That's
reopening society, not doing it in an unsafe manner.
It's not about stopping the lockdowns. It's not. That basically is a functionary of it. It's a symptom of what we need in the community. But it's also about getting rid of propaganda and getting rid of the indoctrination that happens in our schools, right? And giving parents the ability to stand together, power in numbers, and giving people the ability on the commerce side as businesses to stand together and actually have a voice in government, because they don't now, and they're tax bibs for the government. The organization literally has got pastors that are coming out of nowhere that's saying, look, we want to stand together. It's just creating too much unity, and they don't like it. So Facebook comes in and says, hey, we're gonna block you. We're gonna block your ability. And if you go to
no
FEC,
one can actually share the website, just like no one can share JoeBiden.info, which is just a website set up to point out all the bad stuff that Joe Biden's done.
Guys, listen, let's walk through it. Hunter Biden, $3.5 million comes from some billionaire Russian. You've got ballot harvesting that's happening in Minneapolis. You have ballots getting thrown away in Pennsylvania. You have Joe Biden, which is the one that actually pointed out the Logan Act to go after Flynn. Flynn spends his entire life serving this country only to have this secretive group come in and try to destroy him. I mean, it's amazing to me. It's absolutely amazing to me. And if you go to FEC Colorado, by the way, which is the first one we started here, they literally won't even let you share from that page. Max, I can't even begin to just literally peel back the onion and say, look at what they're doing. BLM stands for Marxist. Antifa really.
It's really hard to argue that Facebook is a platform if they're saying that there's no way to possibly share FEC United on Facebook. They're obviously a publisher at that point, and they're obviously liable. They blocked the URL. So I don't want to go too far into this because we have more stuff to get through, and I want to make sure we get through everything because at the end we want to talk about Trump's taxes too.
Yeah.
So let's put up. These are the two crimes that I think Joe Biden is at the highest risk of actually having committed by giving this instruction to use a false pretext to investigate Michael Flynn. Let's go ahead and put up image 13. We've mentioned this on the show before. 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. This is colloquially known as abuse of power. And it says, whoever under color of any law, statute, or ordinance, regulation, or custom willfully subjects any person in any state, territory, commonwealth, possession, or district to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured or protected by the Constitution or laws of the United States, or to different punishments, pains, or penalties on account of such person being an alien or by reason of his color, race, or anything about that, other possibilities, they will be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. So you can do it for race, you can do it for not race, but if they violate the law, if they pretend to be a legitimate purpose and they violate your rights, it is a penalty. It is a felony crime punishable by imprisonment of not more than 1 year or a fine. So we're going to take that off the screen. The second crime that Joe Biden would be most likely to be in jeopardy of is, let's put up image 14. This is 18 U.S.C. Section 2384, seditious conspiracy. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government of the United States, that is a crime punishable under this title by imprisonment of not more than 20 years or a major fine. So that's a 20-year penalty for conspiring, a seditious conspiracy. If two or more people conspire to overthrow or put down the duly elected government of the United States, that's a felony punishable by 20 years in prison. Yeah. So when you look at that meeting, go ahead, we take it off the screen. When you look at that meeting,
where did you get
Joe Biden sitting there?
The deprivation of rights under color of law. Where did you get that? Because actually under Title 18, Section 242, it's for a term of years for life or a sentence of death for the deprivation of rights.
That's if it involves bodily harm. So there's a second clause. Do you see that down there?
I see it. Yeah, I do.
For terroristic acts, bodily harm, things like that. There's extra ways to one up it. So that's like if you pretended to legitimately arrest someone, but you had like ulterior motives and you beat them up or you shot them, that would be how that would be punishable. Pretending to have a legitimate law enforcement purpose to kill someone. That's when you would reach to that life imprisonment or the more serious penalties.
My point is this: all of us would be arrested if we did something wrong, right?
Yeah.
If you did something wrong, you go to jail, right? I mean, you'd be arrested. Now they can arrest you for anything they want. I mean, does this sound like America, where they can come in and do what they did to Flynn and make up charges and create propaganda and actually force them into a place? See, justice is really expensive, and it's hard to get.
It is.
That's not what this country is founded on. This country is founded on the ability to have access to justice. So I actually think that, you know, we might be on to something, that the system is broken, but it's broken to the place where the American people have become servants, have become slaves to a deep state within the government. I'm sorry, it has.
Yeah.
It's become impossible. The jargon, it should be easy. Here are the facts. Here's how you present the facts. Here's the outcome. Facts presented, outcome.
Yeah.
That should be what it is. But see, there's a whole lot of things happening in the middle of where you can politically jockey, or you can, you know, use different statutes over here. They've made it so complicated and so expensive that getting justice becomes impossible. Yet what's not impossible is that you have to pay an enormous amount of taxes in every area of your life, and you have no representation, even for the representation you do have, right? Because they steal that as well. They harvest ballots. They, you know, do whatever they can to persecute people because of political ideology. It's crazy. It is crazy what we're dealing with today, Max. It's crazy.
And the reason that 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, the reason that statute exists is when you are in government, you have tremendous power. We've talked about this on the show before, Joe, with like prosecutors. They have unlimited resources to go after people. They have the ability to prosecute you for a bogus crime and just run you out of money, make you go through all of your life savings. So the reason that statute exists is to make sure that if people in government are unlawfully or illegitimately abusing their power to deprive you of your rights, to hurt you under the color of law, pretending to be a legitimate exercise, but really having ulterior motives, that's why that statute's in place, so that when you can prove it, not only can you actually go after them personally, because remember, everyone, when you do that, you do not have protections under the law, right? You don't have qualified immunity. Qualified immunity requires that you be faithfully trying to exercise your responsibilities. So if a police officer stops you and accidentally bumps your car during the stop or whatever, you can't sue him personally. You can sue the police department, but you can't sue him personally because he's doing his job the best way he can. Right. When you're depriving someone's rights under the color of law, you do not have qualified immunity because you are not acting in your legitimate position as a law enforcement agent, as an investigator, as a prosecutor. You're doing something for ulterior motives, and you're abusing that power.
That system or that power. Yeah.
So not only does proving that carry an actual criminal penalty for someone who abused your power, but it also opens the door for you to sue them personally, because they can't claim that they were just doing their job and you have to sue the government instead. You can sue them individually in many jurisdictions because they would not have that qualified immunity protection, because they were depriving someone's rights under the color of law. So that's why that statute is so important. When we talk about bad government officials, that statute's in place to give people at least some relief. But the problem is, very rarely does it actually get prosecuted. It gets prosecuted against people who commit hate crimes, right? And that's why you see other parts of that statute where they have higher penalties for physical violence. But very rarely do you actually see anyone get prosecuted for Section 242, because for whatever reason they just decide not to. Maybe it's harder to prove. I don't know. But in this instance of Joe Biden recommending a bogus law, the Logan Act, as a way for the FBI to get around the fact that there's no evidence, to keep the investigation open. And you see Susan Rice emailing herself saying, don't worry, we said do it by the book. Wherein by the book would have meant to close the investigation immediately. You start seeing that there is a conspiracy here to deprive Michael Flynn of his rights, his right to privacy, right, his right to liberty, freedom of movement. You go down the line of what they violated.
Max, every single day we talk about more that the left has done, more that the Democrats have done, more that Biden has done and Obama has done, right? and everyone on the left just says that that's acceptable. I mean, they literally say it's acceptable. If we were to stack up all the things that they've done wrong, right? You could literally, I could fill every wall in this room.
Yeah.
I could fill every wall in this room. Why is that not something that the media is actually concentrating on? Why are they sweeping this under the rug? Why? Why do we have no one except for us talking about accountability? Why do we individualize the act, right? We individualize it. We individualize what's happening with Ilham Omar. We individualize the person, Ilham, whatever.
So the way you remember it is who's the character from Star Wars? Han Solo.
Han Solo.
If he was sick, what would he be? He would be an Ilhan. So that's how you remember her name. Ilhan.
Yeah. For me, it's just absolutely absurd. I don't really care. I mean, it's absurd to me that we have conversations every single day. And every conversation we were talking about peeling back the onion even further and saying, hey, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? Yeah. I mean, you have Marxist and Antifa people running around shooting people, right? Tearing down signs, cutting up Trump signs, because they're deathly afraid of the majority, because they're the minority. Yep. And if they weren't the minority and they were the majority, they wouldn't be cutting down signs. They wouldn't be stealing ballots. They wouldn't be doing all these things.
It's a twofer. I think that can be right. One of two things are happening. Either they believe they're in the majority and they believe that they're in the right, and that they believe that if they do this, everyone will have their back, which is what you think when you're in that bubble, right? You think everyone supports you when you're in a bubble and you're not hearing outside views. Or they truly know that they're in the minority. They know that Trump is going to win, so they're trying to go after him for that. So it can be one of two. I agree. It's crazy what's going on in the country. So yeah, I wanted to get through this. I'll briefly, everyone who's watching, hit that share button if you haven't already. We went through, and I think the reason that you talk about how we are always peeling back the onion. Last week with Bill Barnett, I think that's very important because we knew that Joe Biden had recommended the Logan Act, right? We knew that Peter Strzok got that information and rolled with it. What Bill Barnett told us was that he was the one who was trying to shut down the investigation for lack of evidence, and that Peter Strzok, just before that meeting with Joe Biden, had said, no, keep it open. I think there's another way we can go about this. And sure enough, they used Joe Biden's recommendation for the Logan Act investigation, which was bogus. Everyone knows. I do think that Nancy Pelosi probably can be investigated for her traveling overseas to the United Nations Climate Summit because the Trump administration said we don't want anyone there, and she went anyway. I think there's an argument to be made there, but it's very hard for a Logan Act prosecution. That's why no one has actually been prosecuted successfully since 1799. Before we wrap up, Joe, I wanted to give you a little bit to talk about Donald Trump's tax revelations. Yesterday, the New York Times, without actually showing the documents, said that 10 of 15 years, Donald Trump paid no income taxes, and that the first year he was president, he paid $750 of income taxes. Now, when I look at that, Joe, I say, wait, the first year Donald Trump was president, he gave $400,000 of his salary to the federal government. Right. So suggesting that he should pay income tax when he just paid the entirety of his salary to the federal government, I think is a very weak argument. I also think it's a very weak argument to say that when he's working as president that he should have other sources of income. He said all along that he's taking a loss, that he's actually losing his wealth as a result of being president. Right. It's not all that surprising to me that given what happened in the 90s to him, given what happened with the real estate crash during the Great Recession, and given the fact that he stopped actually working as a businessman when he went into office, it's not all that surprising that he would have more losses to report than revenues generated. Do you think that there's any there?
No, there's nothing there. So what people don't understand, all of these little talking parrots in the New York Times, when they come out and say, I paid $750, you don't understand depreciation, right? You don't understand capital expenditures.
Carrying stuff over.
Carry forwards, lost carry forwards. You don't understand by the way, as a business, you pay taxes everywhere. Everywhere you pay taxes. You pay property. There's a ton of different taxes you pay. So people don't understand. People don't understand that it's when you say that someone didn't pay pay taxes,
income tax.
That's a lie.
They don't understand EBITDA, right? They don't understand any of those basic concepts.
They don't understand that you have to. Frankly, the business, a C corporation, operates as an entity, so it pays taxes, right, by itself. Now, if you're an S corp and that money flows down to you, then great. But if it's a C corp and you own stock in that, then dividends are actually created. So if dividends aren't created, that corporation pays taxes, right?
Yeah.
People don't understand the complexities of different organizations. That you have different things for LLCs, for S corps,
Yeah.
for C corps, and we have quite a few different organizations as well. We pay a boatload of taxes. I pay a boatload of taxes, but you have to do depreciation, right? You have you have loss carry forwards because not every year is a great year for every organization.
Yeah.
It's just not, right? But
when you have the amount of losses that Donald Trump had in the 90s, where he almost went bankrupt, lost $1 billion. When you see at the Great Recession, when so much of his income and wealth stemmed from property management, and you see the properties become so devalued because we had a drop in property values all across the country. When you see all that happening, it's not crazy for him to carry those losses forward. And I think the problem with this is that you have people, listen, if you're paid as an employee, great. But if you're self-employed or you're a business owner, your goal is to pay as little federal taxes as possible.
100%.
You want to build the business. So you
100%.
want to put money back into the business so you're not giving it to the federal government. Every single self-employed and business owner does that. There's complaining Donald Trump spent $70,000 on his hair. What that sounds like to me is he hired someone to be a hairstylist.
Right.
Because he's always on TV. He's always on camera.
Which is
he
a write-off.
probably hired someone for $70K.
You're giving someone
Yeah.
actually a wage, right? You're paying them, right?
Yeah.
And this is the crazy thing about it is you have a bunch of people writing articles without zero understanding of what it means to run a business. There's zero understanding.
Yeah.
And by the way, Google, Facebook, what did Amazon do? Something like almost $1 trillion in revenue?
No federal income tax.
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero federal
Yeah,
income tax.
And I think
by the way,
that's a little
Amazon is a
excessive.
corporate.
Yeah.
But Amazon is a corporation.
Yeah.
Amazon is a C corp. They are actually a C corp, and as a C corp, it stands on its own. It has its own depreciation schedule. It has its own ability to do loss carry forwards. It has its own ability to pay taxes or do dividends, right? All of those things can be true.
Yeah.
But nobody ever complains about that because it's some left-leaning, whack job that actually runs it. Otherwise,
And here's the
we'd
thing.
be talking about that as well. But they just don't understand, right? Nobody understands business. They act like they do because they run a popsicle stand and like, oh, I had to pay taxes on this. Okay, right?
And what people don't understand is there's a difference between tax avoidance, which is a legitimate thing. It's how can I not pay taxes? Okay, well, you need to invest in your business. You need to make sure that you're reinvesting your earnings. That way you can write part of that off. You depreciation, all that. They're trying to make that out to be it's the equivalent of tax fraud, which isn't true. What's amazing, Joe, is I'm reading it, and so Trump paid income taxes on the income that he got in from the Apprentice, which was hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
He paid that. What ended up happening though is he suffered a massive loss.
Right.
So he actually filed a return to get $72 million back, saying,
Right.
well, actually, we suffered a loss, so I paid in more than I should have. If I had actually applied the loss to those years, I wouldn't have paid, so you need to give me that money back.
Right.
The IRS has been auditing him for 10 straight years without a determination one way or another. If Donald Trump had definitively violated the law or whatever, they would have come back with a determination way quicker than 10 years. And we still have no determination, right? It's probably going to end up going to court. But all these keyboard warriors think that they're all of a sudden CPAs. Donald Trump didn't do any of this. Donald Trump hired a CPA to skillfully manage his tax liability so that he pays as little taxes as possible, which is what everyone who's self-employed does. So if the CPA led Trump astray and didn't do something right, then Trump should be very angry at that CPA. Ultimately, Trump signed off on the returns, but Trump didn't go and say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to use this deduction. Those are CPAs, certified public accountants, who are doing that. So that's one of the reasons that Donald Trump didn't want to release his taxes, because he knew that everyone and their uncle was going to be trying to pour through this and give their 2 cents as to why Trump broke the law. And frankly, Joe, no matter how good you are with your taxes, there's always going to be someone who says, hey, that's probably not legitimate. Right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone who can jump in and say, well, is that really fair? Is it really that much? It's very easy to nitpick things like that. But ultimately, it's up to the IRS. If the IRS, after 10 years, has not determined one way or another whether Trump's return was fraudulent or not, you can't just run with it and say that Trump broke the law or insinuate it. It's very, very disingenuous from the New York Times.
Yeah, but again, it just shows you how immature, how business immature the left is. They just really are. They don't understand. They literally don't understand. They don't understand what losses look like. They don't understand the risk that you have to take in business. They just want to persecute people for, oh, he lost money. He must be a terrible businessman. It happens. It happens. I mean, it happens.
Yeah. Or in all of its losses, a lot of it was reinvesting. So a lot of it was business expenses, which are legitimate write-offs. Like, as crazy as it is that Donald Trump paid $70,000 to get his hair done one year, that sounds like he just hired a hairstylist. He said, I'm going to be on camera. I'm a celebrity. My celebrity persona is important. I have a wet dog on top of my head, which I think we can all agree Donald Trump does not have the best hair in America. I've seen depictions of what it would look like if he didn't do it. I think he's doing the best he can with what the good Lord gave him. It's not unreasonable for him, a celebrity, to want to have his hair styled, and his hair being styled when he's on camera every day is you can argue it's a legitimate business expense.
Yes, 100%.
You can argue it, and obviously you can argue it isn't, but that's what taxes are. You argue it, and if ultimately you're wrong, then you have to pay back what you claim.
Look, if they do it in Hollywood all the time. I mean, they have people that are makeup artists and and hair people that literally get paid, and that comes off the bottom line. That's a legitimate expense, right?
Yeah, but because it's Trump, it's apparently bad. Orange man bad.
Orange man bad.
So
should we tell everyone what we're going to do tomorrow?
Yeah, I want to let everyone know what we're going to do tomorrow.
Tomorrow's going to be fun.
We're going to be going live twice. At our normal time, 2 p.m. Eastern, we'll be going live with what we're going to call a mock debate. No one's going to represent Joe Biden because, frankly, I don't think either one of us want to dive into the crazy that is Joe Biden. I don't think we'll recover if we have to, for an hour, either one of us has to play a deranged Alzheimer's patient. I think it would be very harmful to our mental health, so I'm not going to make any of us do it. But what we're going to do is they've already released the
But we are going to have fun. We are going to have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going
to They've released the topics for the debate. So we know what they're going to be talking about. It's going to be very easy to put together some questions, some broad questions on what they'll likely ask. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our producer Josh step in. I don't know, on camera or off camera. He's going to read us questions. And Joe and I are going to answer the way we want Donald Trump to answer.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a mock debate, us both playing Donald Trump with questions based on the topics that have already been produced. So we're going to be doing that live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
And then we are going to have the drinking game. So somebody's asking about the popcorn drink. I'm looking at all these comments, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be the most fun part. Yeah, so that's going to be a great time. We're going to have a great time tomorrow. We're going to answer some of the questions seriously, and then I'm going to come back. I might answer the question a little, non-seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
So we have that, and Karen's asking, are you going to broadcast the debate? Yes, that's what we're getting to. So we have our normal time tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern. After that, we will be also broadcasting a live stream watch party for the debate. It's available on C-SPAN, so we're able to do that with fair use. We'll be providing commentary. So it probably will not be the best way if you want to watch it just completely unfiltered. We're going to have to provide some commentary in between so that we can keep it fair use, but we're going to do that. We're also going to have a drinking game, so make sure you go to the liquor store tonight or package store, whatever you have in your state. Make sure you stock up tonight because tomorrow night we're not going to pull any punches. I'm already putting it together. Some of the rules to take a sip is if Joe Biden says "folks," if he says "come on, man,"
come on, man.
Says, I'm the guy. That's what Joe Biden always says. I'm the guy who did this. I'm the guy who did that. So we're already putting together the list of the most used phrases. So you're not going to get out you're not going to get out alive if you play the drinking game. So stock up.
I was in office 180 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
This happened. Yeah. It happened.
Joe Biden said that.
He said that I was in office 180 years ago. I was like, you look like you've been in office 180 years.
Yeah. So that's going to be tomorrow night. So we'll have two. We'll have the 2 p.m. live podcast with the mock debate of us answering the way we want Donald Trump to answer for certain things. And then at night, we'll go live a little bit earlier. So the debate's set to start at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll probably go live at 8:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
Just to give a little pregame coverage. That'll be tomorrow night. Make sure we'll release the drinking game beforehand. Make sure you stock up.
I'm going to show up in a sweatband, some high top socks, right? T-shirt. And who's driving me home? Josh, you driving me home tomorrow? I think Josh is going to have to drive me home tomorrow. You're making
Richard just asked on YouTube, we're not going to green screen? Yes, we are. That's what we're talking about. We're both going to be green screened over the debate and have a watch party for it tomorrow night. So that is happening tomorrow night. Make sure you tune in. So any final words, Joe?
Nah, we'll just wait for tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be fun. My final words are we're going to have so much fun tomorrow. Just tune in tomorrow because, Yeah, we're going to be. Yeah.
And Joe Otto's going to be drinking a lot of Blue Dolphins.
Yeah.
Blue Dolphins are what happens when the bartender thinks you've drank a little bit too much and gives you a shot of water.
Well, yeah, I could probably use a couple of those. And Josh is participating in tomorrow as well. He's going to be asking the questions of us, right?
He's going
to be Chris
moderator.
Wallace.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Josh. I'm sorry. Brian says 8:30 Eastern. Yeah, that's when we'll be going live. I believe it starts at 9 p.m. Eastern, so we'll be going live half an hour before with our little pregame coverage. So that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. If you like this, talking about all the implications for Joe Biden, make sure you hit that share button if you haven't already. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe and the bell for notifications. If you want to download the podcast audio version, a lot of times people can't watch it live. That's okay. Make sure you subscribe to the audio version of the podcast. The best way to do that, if you have an iPhone, is to go to Apple Podcasts. That's where we're high up in the rankings. So we have links for you to subscribe to the audio podcast in the description from Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, or Podbean. Definitely do that. It helps us promote the show. It helps us get the show in front of more people. Also, if you're listening to the audio version and you want to see some of these hijinks on camera, we go live on Facebook and YouTube Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. There's also a link in the description for you to sign up for our email newsletter. That's important. If we do get taken out by Facebook, that's how we're going to organize to keep the show going. We also have links if you want to help the podcast by buying some merch. So definitely make sure you check out all of those links. So again, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And remember that the fight to take back our country clearly isn't over, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together.